Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, whatcassread. Today, actually not today, but like 2 days ago, I brought you all along with me to the used bookstore. So I'm gonna show you all that footage. I made it around to 2 bookstores and then I called it quits because I had spent enough money. And I will meet you back here for what I ended up buying. All right, everyone, we are gonna go on a little adventure today. Welcome to my garage. We are not gonna stay in my garage because I thought I would take you with me. I'm gonna go hit up a few bookstores. It's the day after Christmas, so I don't know like if it's gonna be a busy day out there or not, but husband has time off of work, so that means that I also have some free time to go on a little adventure, and I thought I'd take you with. All right, let's do it. Okay, I just finished up at Half Price Books. Now I've gone over to Barnes & Noble. I think this will be my last stop because I did spend quite a bit at Half Price Books. It was so hot in there. Oh my gosh. I haven't been to that particular location in a couple of months. And I think maybe the last time I went was in the summertime, so I just naturally assumed it was hot because of that. No, I think that store is just hot all around, and it was packed. But I made out like a bandit, so I'll show you that. I just want to check and see if Barnes & Noble has anything that catches my eye. I probably won't spend as much money in Barnes & Noble, just for the sake of modesty and looking out for my bank account. Right now, I ended up purchasing a reusable bag from Half Price Books because the amount that I bought could not be transported just in my arms. So I had a plan that I didn't want to go too far south into downtown Austin. It's just the traffic just gets crazy down that way. But the best Half Price Books location that has the most amount of fantasy books is also the one that's the closest downtown. So my plan was to start where I am up north and stop at one, and then if that didn't have anything, then I was gonna make my way to another bookstore that was a little bit like in between, and then if I couldn't find anything at that bookstore, then I was gonna go all the way to the really good one downtown. I ended up actually doing really well at my first location. It didn't have a good fantasy selection. I knew that going in there, but I feel like since the last time I went into that store, it's been a while, but I feel like they've even shrunk their fantasy selection a little bit at that store. But it actually worked out for me because I was like really open to other genres for this shopping trip because I'm trying to read more outside of my comfort zone in the upcoming year. So I found some historical fiction, wild, some historical romance. I knew I'd hit the jackpot for historical romance at any bookstore I went to. And I even bought 2 nonfiction books, which is crazy. I'll kind of like get to how I came about that decision. But let's start with some of the historical fiction that I know you'll recognize, because this book is everywhere, and I also had it a long time ago in a hardcover copy, and then I ended up donating that. I knew I always wanted to like rebuy it in a paperback. I just prefer the paperback versions. So this is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've only read one Taylor Jenkins Reid book before, and that was Daisy Jones and the Six, and I really enjoyed it. So I've always known that I wanted to get this book again in a paperback version. And this follows the life of a reporter as she kind of works her way and discovers all about Evelyn Hugo, this like Hollywood star who's older by the time that this reporter meets up with her, and she gets to hear about her life story. And I mean, everyone says this one's a banger. So yeah, I had to get that one. But then they did have another Taylor Jenkins Reid book on the shelf. They had Malibu Rising. And that isn't her latest release. Gosh, I don't remember the name of her latest release, but you know, since I was there, I decided to pick both of them up. So this one, Malibu Rising, is a story about one unforgettable night in the life of a family, the night they each have to choose what they will keep from the people who made them and what they will leave behind. Yeah, so I haven't heard too many people talk about Malibu Rising because Daisy Jones and the Six and The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo get so much hype just in terms of the Taylor Jenkins Reid books. But if you've read this one, tell me what you think about it in the comment section below. Then I have been binging and obsessing over Christy Reads a Lot, and she hosts a historical fiction book club. She also does a lot of historical romance, and I'm actually gonna join them for their Hathaway's read along. Christy and a couple other hosts are gonna do that starting in January. So I've got, you know, my historical romance needs met. But she was talking about this author, and she was talking about some historical fiction books that I was interested in, that she talked it up, and I liked the sound of it, and I picked up 4 books from this author. So I really hope I like this author because I went pretty hard on her. So let's see. The first one, I think, I still have to take the tag off, but this one is Next Year in Havana. The author is Chanel Cleeton. So Chanel Cleeton, I think, was born and raised in Miami, but her family is from Cuba, and she grew up hearing a lot of the stories about her family in Cuba and the different things that they went through, and especially the Cuban Americans and what they went through in the 1960s onward. So we're following like a dual timeline in this one. So Havana, 1958, we're following one character, Elisa Perez. So we follow her and see what she's been doing in her life in Havana, Cuba's high society, before the revolution begins. Oh, Marisol is the grandmother of Elisa, and Elisa was forced to flee with her family during the revolution. So Marisol has her own kind of journey to bring her grandmother's ashes to Cuba. Okay, so that's book number 1. Now it is a series. I think there are 5 books in the series. When We Left Cuba, this is book number 2 in the series. This follows another member of the same family, of Elisa Perez. And this one brings her to the Cold War. So that's right. The Cuban Revolution took everything from sugar heiress Beatriz Perez, her family, her people, her country. And so she's recruited by the CIA to infiltrate Fidel Castro's inner circle. And so it's a story of espionage. Thought that sounded awesome. And then this is, I think I accidentally skipped a book, or maybe I have them in the right order. I don't know, but this is one of the later books in the series, so I have to kind of figure out which ones I'm missing. Our Last Days in Barcelona, again by Chanel Cleeton. So this looks at another dual timeline from Barcelona in 1936 and Barcelona in 1964. So we follow Isabel Perez. And then this was another release by Chanel Cleeton, not related at all to the Perez family, but this one also just sounded like kind of fun and kind of cool. I've been really interested in lots of different looks at American history, and so this takes a look, 1934, a luxury cruise. And so what Christy Reads a Lot was saying was that there used to be like all these luxury cruises like during Prohibition, where people pay lots of money, go and party on these cruises, party all the way down to Havana and then come back, and then they're not, you know, breaking any laws. Yeah, those are the historical fiction books. Christy Reads a Lot got me pretty hyped. Now, I have one book by Sarah McLean, who is an author I still have yet to try, but I'm gonna make a whole romance TBR jar situation, and so hopefully I'll pull Sarah McLean out of that jar. But this is Heartbreaker, a Hell's Bells novel. This, I don't know if it follows up Bombshell. Okay, so Bombshell and then Heartbreaker. I have Bombshell, I didn't have Heartbreaker. So I saw that on the shelf. And then I think this is gonna be like my biggest score of the day, was I found 5 out of the 6 books of the Bedwin Saga. So I only have to buy book number 3, but they had the rest of the series at the Half Price Books location. And I saw that like Amazon had a newer version of this cover. So it's Slightly Married, written by Mary Balog. People talk about the Bedwin Saga as just this really great historical romantic read that you have to try. Like Mary Balog is just one of the giants of the genre. And this is a good series, everybody says, to, like, if you want to try her out, to read this. I've heard that her books are a little bit more character driven. They're a little bit slower. I don't know. Am I mixing that up with Julie Garwood? Please tell me. But anyways, I knew I wanted to get my hands on the Bedwin Saga, so I think I scored huge. So it was Slightly Married. I know Slightly Wicked comes next. Then I'm kind of all out of order. I don't have Slightly Scandalous, which is book number 3. And then I don't know the order of the rest of them, but we have Slightly Sinful, Slightly Tempted, and Slightly Dangerous. So 5 out of the 6 books in that series, all like under $3. All right, and then I have 2 nonfiction books. Who even am I? But what has brought me to this spot, okay, so since I couldn't find any fantasy books, I want to read out of my comfort zone, and so I've been thinking about some historical fiction that I could potentially get into. But part of me is always like, okay, but like what really happened during that time? Whenever I'm reading a historical fiction novel, which is why I don't often go there, I want to have like a lot more background knowledge of what was going on at the time of what these characters are experiencing. That's like huge for me when it comes to historical novels. Historical fiction. And I watch a ton of documentaries. Like, that's not something I talk about ever, but like if I'm just randomly sitting on the couch on a Saturday and I can't find anything else to watch, I'll check and see what kind of documentaries are out there. So I was like, you know, you have been watching like a lot of historical documentaries. Wonder if you should just try and find like a historical book, not historical fiction, and see if there's anything out there. See if there's authors out there that could get you to read like historical books, not historical fiction. The one that stood out to me first, I don't know anything about it, but it was called The Witches, and it's about the Salem witch trials. This is written by Stacy Schiff, and it says she's the Pulitzer Prize winning author of Cleopatra. So anyways, this one just like stood out to me because I was like, hello, yes, I would love to read a nonfiction account of the Salem witch trials. And I've watched a couple of documentaries on Salem, so I think this one would be really, really cool. Drawing masterfully on the archives of the Salem witch trials, Stacy Schiff makes palpably real for us one of the most electrifying chapters in American history. She illuminates the demands of a rigorous faith and the vulnerability of settlements adrift from the mother country, perched on the edge of a remote, rocky, barren, bushy, wild, woody wilderness. The Witches brings early American anxieties to the fore and aligns them brilliantly with our own. Okay, so yeah, I was like, I could definitely read some nonfiction about the Salem witch trials. Now this one, is kind of a stretch for me because it's, I don't know, I don't get intimidated by large books, but I get intimidated by large nonfiction. But this is David McCullough, and the book is The Great Bridge. Now, David McCullough has written tons of historical. Off the top of my head, I know he's the one who wrote 1776. But this one is the epic story of the building of the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, my grandfather grew up in Brooklyn. I didn't grow up in New York, but whenever I went to New York to go visit him, he always just talked very fondly about his childhood in Brooklyn. And he was always very, very proud to show off the Brooklyn Bridge. And I would say that the Brooklyn Bridge is honestly one of like my personal favorite American landmarks. I love it. Every time I'm in New York, I love it. So yeah, I saw this and I thought that would be pretty cool because I kind of have that connection. I still have an uncle who lives in Brooklyn. I do still have a lot of family who live in New York, but my grandfather was really the one who was like really proud to be someone from Brooklyn. Yeah, it was his grandfather that came over to the United States from Norway. So that's where that family comes from. So I thought that would be really cool. The Great Bridge, the epic story of the building of the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, I have no idea when I'm gonna get to these books, but there's just like all kinds of ideas kind of going around in my head about the types of things that I want to be reading for 2025, and being purposeful about going outside of my comfort zone is something that I would really like to try. I mean, especially for the nonfiction, like most of the time, if I'm reading nonfiction, it's a memoir. So I thought there might be some other stuff out there that I could try. But anyways, let me know what you think about this book haul in the comment section below. Very different from my typical book hauls, but I feel like when you go into a used bookstore with an open mind, you can find a ton of great stuff. And I think that's what I did. Comment, like, subscribe. All of my social media links and my small business links are listed down in the comment section below. You know how these videos end, and I'll talk to you later.